Ha! Welcome back. Today we're going to change some fork seals on Yamaha FZ6 Fazer. Stay with me. I've got the fork legs on the healing bench. What we need to do now is disassemble it and inspect each and every part of it, decide what needs changing, what doesn't need changing, remove the old seals, dust seals, install the new seals, fill it up with oil, then they can go back onto the bike. Now in this video, I'm not going to go into too much detail on how exactly to change the fork seals. If you want more detailed video, then check out this video over here. And without further ado, let's dive into it. I've got everything laid out here in the exact order they go back into the fork. I've got the oil measured out as well. Without further ado, let's crack on and assemble the fork. If you have a look here, we've got this fairly sharp edge. Now if I try and push the seal through it, there's an increased risk of me damaging the lip of the seal. If we damage this, it's guaranteed that we're gonna leak oil. Yeah, you might find this funny, but I'll pull a condom over it. And then I'll push the seal through. Now, obviously there's this thicker rim of the condom. We need to cut this off. Now we need to hammer in the seal. Now I haven't mentioned this in this video, but obviously we need to drive down this seal. We're gonna need a fork seal driver. I've done a more in-depth video on how to change the fork seals, which you can check out here. Right, let's drive down this seal.
Later.
Now let's install the circlip. And then the dust seal. The dust seal installed. Now we need to put the damper rod in. And then the fixing bolt. We don't need to tighten it at this stage. You won't even be able to do it. Now the spring. Now we need to put the washer in. Then the spacer. And now the cap. Right, now we've got this assembled, and you might be asking, well, when the fuck did you put the oil in? Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but the reason I installed this dry is because I need the spring preload in the fork to be able to tighten this bolt here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna get the impact driver and give it a few bangs. And that's all we need. Now we can take the cap off again, being very careful, because obviously we got a spring in here. Now we can remove the spacer and we can fill it up with oil. Now I've got the oil measured out in a graduated cylinder. The amount of oil we need for this bike is 467 milliliters. Now we can extend the fork leg again. There we go. And put the spacer in and the cap. And that's our fork assembled. Now, before we put this back on the bike, we need to bleed the fork, which means we need to stand it upright and pump it a few times so the air bubbles get pushed up. You can hear this squirting sound. Now usually we need to do this until the squirting sound stops. And that's the fork bled. Now let's go on and chuck it back into the bike. Now you might be wondering, how far up do you need to push the fork legs? It's very simple. On this particular bike you've got no markings, there's only one height. You want to push the fork in up to this line where the cap meets the fork leg, and it needs to be exactly the same on both sides. It's important because you don't want to mess up the geometry of the bike. Now what we need to do is tighten the upper triple clamp bolts and the lower triple clamp bolts as well. The torque setting is 30 Newton meters. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on future videos. Take care, and I'll see you in a bit.